we get a ton of questions each week about the differences of training X, Y, and Z, or how do you get bigger, stronger, faster, or throw harder, or this, right? So one thing I do want to touch on that we get a lot because we train so many baseball players. For those that don't know, we have a high population of baseball players we train from high school to the pro level. And one common question, especially in the high school level, but in the pro level too, is the difference of training a position player and a pitcher, right? And so you got different demands for each, right? If you take out the demand on a pitcher's arm, then it's a lot more similar than what you would think, because how you train a hitter to hit the ball harder, how to run faster, be more powerful, be more explosive, is a very similar way, or very similar training modalities that you're going to train a pitcher to throw harder, right? Getting powerful, becoming explosive is always a good thing. Becoming a better athlete is always a good thing.
Absolutely.
So there's differences, and I want to get into those, but at the same time, I want to open it up with saying there's probably not as much differences in training a pitcher versus a position player as it is being portrayed to be.
Yeah, and just to kind of expound on that, as far as that in a general sense, to your point, I think when it comes to the skill work from a hitter to a pitcher, right? They work on that on their own outside of the weight room. But we talk about being a powerful athlete, or training them on a modality to be more powerful or be more athletic, or building their system or body, if you will, to meet those demands in the weight room. Sometimes, with the exception of certain things, we'll get into that at a certain point. If you look at a weight room and you got three pitchers in there training with two position players, and they're all doing different workouts, they may look kind of the same. You can't really tell which is which, and outside of a certain point. But like you said, I think the how that translates, they do that on their own. They go to the hidden lessons. So that's why you have skill people or skill coaches. I'm not a pitching coach. I'm not a hidden coach. I need to understand what it entails so that way I can meet those demands. But to your point, um, it can never hurt to be more powerful. It can never hurt to be have more mobility in the hips, internal rotation of the hips. It can never hurt to be those things, and also in the general sense of them being common in the commonalities. And we talk about this too, but at I think at a lower level. So let's say a high school, especially in the high school, before you get to the point to where maybe they're like seniors and they're pitcher only, there really isn't much difference. When you get higher up, MLB or anything like that, it gets real specific. The higher you go, the differences may kind of spread, but even then, there are still certain common
I just
aspects
I
of
just
that.
think you have to understand the stress that's being placed on each, and that comes if
Absolutely.
you're training a football player too, right? You can't give an athlete the most kind of optimal program they need if you don't understand the stress that's being put on them, or if you don't understand from like a biomechanical standpoint
Yeah.
what the body is being asked to do.
Yeah.
And so when you pitch and hit, you rotate, right? You rotate real fast. Not that the pitching motion is the fastest motion in all of excuse me, in all of sports.
Yeah.
If a pitcher throwing 90 plus miles per hour was to continue his arm movement, it would be 20 revolutions in 1 second. So that's a lot of fast movement going on. But what that tells me is, okay, this pitcher is an athlete, needs to train like an athlete. One of my biggest, probably, I don't know if mistakes is the right word. I've made so many, but one of my biggest kind of transitions that I've had, or growth as a strength coach, has been how I train pitchers. Right when I was maybe 23, 24, just getting into starting to train a lot of pitchers, I was kind of real careful, old school. Hey, let's use some bands. Let's use some light weights. I'm gonna don't go heavier than 25 pounds in the landmine press. I'm scared. Let's just stay light, right? And now fast forward, 9 years down the road, 8 years down the road, it's kind of changed and transitioned, where now it's like, now we got the pitchers doing the sprint works with the position guys. There's a lot of value in that. Now we got pitchers getting real strong in these movements, right? So I think as long as you create good movement patterns and build strength on top of that, it's okay. And I know, Greg, just getting into training baseball players, but you've seen this in the past, few months of training. You've been able, like when you walk into the gym, you see a pitcher and position guy doing the same thing. You know what I mean? Like you're not coming in there and it's not like we have pitchers in one corner and position guys on the next corner.
Everybody's sort of the same, yeah. I
Yeah.
would even say too, I had like a perception coming from football about baseball players like being
Give it to us.
soft.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's just B. Yeah.
yeah, especially be soft, but not. Nah, I guess growing up, I don't know. I never really interacted with any baseball kids, so I just always thought like sort of to what you're saying. I guess what your mentality was back when you were younger, is that they're just be gentle with them, like they're very skillful and not so much like athletic. I was always taught hand-eye coordination, all that stuff is like more of a skill and not so much of a power athlete. But just working with y'all and even being around them, there's some dogs,
Yeah.
right? And they work their ass off, and it's not far off from football. The movements are different, the demands are different, I would say, but the intentionality, the aggression, the focus that they have is the same. It's just I think football players we have to lift more to build more on our bodies. Prepare us for the season as to where they're more functional. But yeah, I think that was the biggest thing coming from for somebody who doesn't know nothing from nothing. I think it was just the overall sort of perception of it, which it's been disproven
Yeah.
since I started
Absolutely.
working with y'all. So.
Absolutely.
And the thing with like one of the big questions we get from pitchers is how do you throw harder? I want to throw harder. I want to increase velocity, and just have been doing this for now over a decade and seeing pitchers, a lot of high level guys. We've had guys that come in that throw 100 miles per hour. And for the most parts, there's a reason why they throw really hard. You can pinpoint it. Whether they have a lot of overall range of motion, the throwing shoulder is one, or they're extremely strong and powerful, or they're very springy and almost like a basketball player kind of jump out of the room, right? Usually a pitcher has one of those three components of why they throw hard. And of course, you have outliers who God just said, hey, you're going to throw hard, you're going to be fat, you're going to be weak, you're going to be unathletic, you're going to have no range of motion, but you're going to throw 98 miles per hour, right? So you have those outliers too. But when you look at those three components are ingredients of what makes a good athlete, right? Being able to move, range of motion, being strong, and then being powerful and being springy and being able to explode. And so if those three components make a good athlete, and if those three components make a good pitcher too, for the most part, then why wouldn't we train a pitcher as an athlete, right? And of course, you have the demands on what happens to the shoulder and elbow, right? This is not a shoulder care episode. That's a whole nother thing we can kind of dive into in the kinematics of the shoulder. But it comes down to pitchers and position players train very similar until you get kind of higher in the spectrum until until you get paid seven figures to throw a baseball. I think it's a lot more similarities than differences, especially in the high school kind of college
absolutely.
I would concur.
I think
it's a damn good word.
that's concur is a good word. I was gonna say to your point, sometimes when I first came into this field, being a complete outsider, and then coming in, and then being new to the training, and also being new to the high level training, and then being new to the baseball training when I first
The
came in,
shoulders move, yeah.
and all this stuff, and it's coming at me. I think one thing that would get me would be like, to your point, how so much stuff is just like we're there's a trend sometimes being maybe at a lower level, being overgeneralizing. So especially in like a team sport, you might have a coach that's like, you know, cookie cutter or something like that, where it's like overgeneralization. But sometimes I think, especially at the highest level, if you're training high level high school kids, college kids, pro level especially, we tend to like overcorrect and get over specific. And this is like you said, when we first came in, it was like, oh well, he does this. Let's just let's kind of keep them in their corner and let's kind of protect this money maker. And then it's like at a certain point, you're like, well, the same thing that'll make a hitter more powerful or a position player more explosive running the base. Those same things will make a pitcher more explosive and throw harder. I'm still taking care of this. This is the main thing. Once again, this isn't a shoulder uh, talk, right? However, I think sometimes in an effort to, you know, I don't know, make ourselves smarter or make ourselves better or more lofty, we kind of overcorrect and then over specialize. And it's like, no, they need some of that too.
That's right.
They're still very, very explosive, powerful athletes. And if you train them as such, you're going to get the right results. So yeah,